Buckle up, Buttercup. Rex Bear League Project. How the heck are you? We've got Tess Clark, Mythos Decoded, one of your favorite guests, also one of mine, and we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to get into the Saturn mythology, Saturn worship, the ancient cataclysms, the creation of certain gods and deities. And I have to go ahead and I had an echo there for a second. So it's going to be a lot to discuss. Tess Clark has written a multitude of papers on the electric universe and mythology. Check out her website, Mythos Decoded. I'm going to leave a link in the video description box. Just click the link. And numerous articles and videos and podcasts. Most of them, if not all of them, are free. But what's fascinating is the possibility of, was Saturn a star at one point in history? Was Saturn revered as a god? Did people worship Saturn and offer certain sacrifices to appease the gods and Saturn as a god? And why would that be? Why would they create something, or what would have happened in the past that they felt like they had to offer some type of sacrifice in order for themselves not to be potentially sacrificed? Very fascinating. So Tess is going to break it down for us. She wrote a book called the Saturn. We're getting some audio opportunity here. No, much better. Okay, so the mythology is fascinating and the history is fascinating. Why is there so much mythology associated with Saturn? And was Shamash, if you study ancient Sumerian mythology, Shamash is the ancient god of the sun in Sumer and Babylon. And then it changed to Utu. And so there's a lot of speculation and different theories about, are they the same entity or are they different? I think that Shamash is actually representing Saturn when it was actually a star, and Utu would be the sun that we look at now. But I could be wrong on this. So it's great to have you on the program, Tess. It's been way too long. How the heck are you?
Hello, Rex, and hi, everyone. I'm well. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I like the setup you got there. And where are you hanging out these days, if I can ask?
I am in the peninsula, the Olympic Peninsula, very close to Mount Olympus, which is an ancient volcano. It's beautiful. I think you've been here. So
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of hiking, and pretty soon I'm going to be heading to Idaho, northern Idaho, but I'm not sure yet of the. But yeah, I've been traveling quite a bit lately.
Nice. Well, beautiful areas. Like the Pacific Northwest is gorgeous, and out there, especially where you're talking about, is magnificent. It's like one of those places you can be happy and depressed at the same time because it's so beautiful, but it rains so much and it's overcast so much out there. But so let's get into this. Now, before we do, folks, I did want to give just a quick promotion to tinfoilcap.co, tinfoilcap.co for EMF protection from head to toe. You can get EMF liners for your hats. You can get liners that you can put over that can act like Faraday cages for your phone and your router and other devices that emit EMF radiation. Great prices. We are the original. Tinfoilcap.co is the original. The products have been tested. They work. Great prices. A lot of people are concerned about being exposed to mass amounts of EMF radiation. Some people don't care. Hey, it's all up to you. It's a personal choice. But if you want to protect yourself from potentially harmful radiation, go to tinfoilcap.co and place your order today. Okay, let's get into this. So, Tess, the Saturn critique. First of all, let's talk a little bit about you. Like, how long have you been studying Saturn and mythology and the electric universe?
Yes, since let's see. Well, I started looking at cosmology and was interested in Planet X and all of that since before 2012, because the end of the Mayan calendar. And they were talking about different, Hunabku, the galactic center, and that we were going to ascend and go through all these changes. But the cosmology was really fascinating to me as well. And I stumbled upon James McKenney's Planet X videos back then. And then I learned about Velikovsky and the Thunderbolts project, which, they're very big. A lot of people know them. And then I after reading all of Velikovsky's published and unpublished work. So I read everything, and he has a big archive with very important and interesting information, which few people know about because they just read either Words in Collision and or Earth in Upheaval, Mankind in Amnesia, and those that have been published, but they don't know that as part of the Worlds in Collision, of what happened in the solar system, he has an archive with that history and the research, and he quotes all his sources. And, it's very, very it's very detailed, so you can always go and look for the quote and see if that's what they were, the text were saying the same thing. And so I did that. So as I was reading his work, I was going to the sources and trying to see if it matched, and because it was fascinating. And then once I did that, I was also listening to the Thunderbolts Project. And of course, people know David Talbot, the late David Talbot, who was mentioning Velikovsky's work, saying he was basing his Saturn myth theory or hypothesis. He wrote a book, which I also read, and I also went to the sources, by the way, and to check them, cross-reference. And it turns out that he had actually changed a lot of Velikovsky's original work. And so that really bothered me because many people were getting the wrong information. And I thought, okay, so I have to do something to clarify. And so I wrote 2 PDFs, ebooks, and I made 2 videos. The second one is, I think, better because it has a lot of the sources that other people were criticizing his David Talbot's work and saying, this is wrong, this doesn't match, this has nothing to do with history and what recorded history and the mythologies. So I put those out there. And of course, I was attacked by many people that were following the Thunderbolts Project, like if it was some kind of religion or cult, without doing their own research. And so I actually ended up pulling those videos out because I just got tired of getting attacked. And I'm like, okay, well, people don't want to find the truth. Fine. I don't care either if they don't care. So I seriously just got fed up and I just took them down. And there's a lot of good information, and I liked Thornhill's work, and I know that they have helped with the electric universe to help people understand that the universe is not neutral, but it is electrically charged, as well as all life on every planet. We, including us, and every single thing that you see on the planet has a charge, and that is that's like the biggest secret that they have kept. So it's like all this information is almost like secret knowledge, but it's not secret, because if you read the books, it's the ancient books of the ancient philosophers and the mythologies, and you decode them with the electric universe, then you can understand and just see all this for yourself. But it takes it took me since then. So it's over 10, 12 years. Well, I was writing my books. I think I started in 2015 because I had put all this information together so I could understand, because I just wanted to understand what was going on and how things work and the history of planet Earth and humanity. And then my ex-boyfriend at the time said, you should write a book. This is really incredible. You need to write something down. Just don't keep it to yourself. And I said, okay. And that's how I started.
That's pretty cool. And I know you've kind of, you've evolved a lot over the past 15 years. I know, like around 2011 timeframe, you were really getting into the 2012 possibility of there being this 5th dimensional ascension or whatever, which, it's so funny because so many people have gone through that same experience. So we can connect with that. I've gone through back in the day, Fukushima. Oh no, the end of the world. All the way back it was so funny, 1999, my friend, this is right when I'm out of high school, and one of my coworkers, I was in the appliance electronics business at the time, and one of my coworkers was like, look, man, 2000's coming up. You better get ready. You better get ready. And I wasn't really concerned about it, but he kind of put the fear in me into it a little bit. So, I mean, I was walking around with $5,000 in my pocket, all my, my savings account. I went to Costco and was purchasing tents and supplies. And then I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, if shit really hits the fan, is this Costco tent and these canned goods, how long am I going to be able to get by on this? So, and of course, obviously it didn't happen. The end of the world, people can always make a prediction for tomorrow. Yet tomorrow comes and goes, and we're still here, and we're still spending way too much for groceries. Yet luckily we can buy groceries because the weather is extreme. Okay, so before we get into the Saturnian worship and the ancient mythologies, with this extreme weather that's going on, there's a lot of people questioning how much of it is natural and possibly artificial. And I'm not going to get into that here. So let's not get into that here. But here's the question for you, if that's what you're thinking, folks. What's scarier? Artificial or natural when it comes to some of these disasters that we've been dealing with, like the flooding and such? So I don't know. There's been a whole bunch of 100-year floods that have been happening recently. So 1 in 100 years. This is the 100-year or 1,000-year. Anyway, so whole other podcast, just something to think about. But I think it also kind of connects to ancient cataclysms and the creation of certain gods and deities like Göbekli Tepe. After the Younger Dryas event, from the research I have done, many gods were created and formulated in ancient Sumer. They seem to kind of spawn Hey, did any of that go? Did you get any of that? You're muted, by the way.
You froze for a few seconds, but yeah, I just wanted to say that it's both. Could be both.
Okay. Did any of that go through? Did you get any of that? Because we froze up for a minute.
Yeah, it was just a few seconds of
Okay.
the last part that you were saying. And sometimes actually you freeze to me, but I noticed on the video on our last interview, people can't see you. Actually, it's just me that missed the few a little bit, and then you same thing with me, so it's fine.
Okay. So what do you think about the well, let's get into Saturn. Let's talk deep about Saturn. Should I pull up the
Yes, please.
Saturn mythology critique that you wrote?
You can do that, and then we can do the image that I sent you.
Cool. That
please.
Works. Absolutely. So this is really cool. You've put a lot of time into your work. You put a lot of time into your papers, and I respect that. I think that's very cool. A lot of people will spend time complaining on the internet on their thoughts, but they won't really do the research. They just, their emotions come out and boom. So let's see here. Here we go. The Saturn Myth Critique by Tess Clark. Mythos Decoded. So tell us about this.
Okay, so yeah, basically so someone was attacking me because they were like, "Oh, so you're not a believer of the polar configuration," which is, you know what that is, right? I don't know if people know, but allegedly.
Will you describe that, please?
Yes.
Now this is referencing Saturn. So
yes,
give a context of the polar configuration and what you're describing, please, for us.
Yes. Well, I can read to you this, but basically I'm just going to look at it. And so I first start by saying, well, okay, so we'll do the polar configuration, but I think I go into it right here on this PDF. So allegedly, David Talbot said that Saturn was a night sun, and it was considered the sun by the Chaldeans. That's what he said, because we were in a line attached to, well, not attached, well, not electrically. He didn't know anything about the electric universe when he first created this theory. And later on, actually, they explained to him, this couldn't be, because this is what would happen, and I'll explain that. And he never retracted. They never retracted that theory of the polar configuration, which is very lame. Very lame. Okay, so he was saying, so here is Saturn, then there was Mars, then Venus, and then Earth. And they're using a Herbig Herob, I think that's the name, of some stars or some planets and stars that are seen in galaxies, or not in solar systems, but they can see them somewhere out there. Herbig Hero, I think that's the way that these stars are, sort of in a line. But that's just one type, and there's many other configurations. It's not the only one. So they were saying this is how Earth was for, I don't know how long. There's the time, I explained the timeline that they talk about, and then they changed it, how long this lasted. I think he said 300 years it was in this configuration. And when they were actually entering the solar system. So allegedly, they were saying that Earth had been orbiting Saturn in this manner, and that was the time of the golden age, or when everything was wonderful. And then once it came into the solar system, bad things happened, and the fall of man, and the ejection from the Garden of Eden. That's what they were saying. So the problem with this, well, anyway, so Jano Cook, he actually did a great critique, and he just said, this is wrong, this couldn't be. So he was back then already talking about this. And I just wanted to say really quickly that David Talbot was seeking to destroy Velikovsky's theories about Saturn having been an important planet for Earth for many, many, many decades. And then suddenly, when Velikovsky died, then he kind of like distorted Velikovsky's work, and he pretended to kind of use it to base his research, which was really bizarre. And I also have a video about a letter that Velikovsky wrote to David Talbot when David Talbot was creating this theory, the polar configuration. And Velikovsky totally destroys his theory, saying, no, sorry, I don't know where you came up with this. I never saw this quote anywhere. It doesn't exist. Can you please show me? And he gave him this information way before Talbot wrote the Saturn myth. And so, yeah, it was all purposely done, which is, very sad, but it happens. And I think, honestly, it was control damage, like damage control. Let's just change all this information that Velikovsky, showed the world, because this is unacceptable. People should not really know the truth. So let's just mix it up. And sorry to say, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. This is what I think. So anyways, in that polar configuration, if it was an electric universe that it was based on, all the planets would have been totally acting up and really flaring and having electric interactions between them. It couldn't have been peacefully, like, oh, suddenly we got in this position and it was all good. Only Venus was doing her thing, but Mars was just sitting there doing nothing, and Earth was just sitting here doing nothing. It doesn't make sense. So they told him, and actually they told me, because some of these people were writing to me after I put this information out, people that were working with David Talbot, and they were telling me, oh yes, David didn't know that he was wrong, and we explained to him, once he learned about the electric universe, he understood that, we told him that this couldn't be possible, but he never changed his all his videos. He just kept putting them out there and never publicly said, I was wrong, this is not correct. So just forget about it, people. Forget about it. Never. So on their website, they did say something like really little, like, oh yeah, we made a mistake, or he made a mistake, oops. But it's, yes, so that's what happened anyway. So it's a limited hangout, so everyone knows. And they do have amazing guests like Andrew Hall, who actually knows a lot of information of the electric universe, and he talks about comets. And comets, he knows that they're planets, because that's what the scientists, the philosophers of ancient times, they were called philosophers, natural philosophers. They're the scientists of our time. They were the scientists of our time. They all of them said planets and stars and comets, they all have a rocky core. They're all rocky celestial objects. And depending on how they're interacting, that's how they look. They look like and the electric potential, of course. The sun would have a very high electric potential. So that's why it looks like a star, like a blazing star with a lot of, plasma and being ejected, and elements being produced in their atmospheres. But they're a rocky planet, and the Pythagoras talked about that. All the ancient philosophers that talked about the universe, Plato also, they talked about basically everything is just a rocky planet, and depending on how much atmosphere they have and an electromagnetic field, a plasma sheath, then they would have a different visual look for us. If you're looking up in heaven and then you see a star or a planet, which can look like a star. And we were going to talk about Mercury, that it displays every year almost, it displays a comet-like tail. And our moon also has a comet-like tail. And it's all because they are electrically interacting. When their orbit gets a little bit too close to the sun, there's a higher current, and that makes the star or the planet or comet get a tail, or brighten up or dim down, get auroras or not get auroras, which is all electrical interactions. Another plasma, they call them, like ghost and sprites and Steves. There are so many names for all these plasma formations.
Let me jump in real quick, and I appreciate that. I want to go back to the polar configuration that you were describing. Is this a good representation of that?
Basically, yeah, yes, kind of. I don't really see they had like a, yes, okay, so yes, it's like a triangle. Yes, this triangle you can see down below, and then the concentric circle. It just doesn't show Venus. It doesn't show like the stars or the points of Mars and then Venus, which is what they were making it to be. So what they did is they went to the Chaldean time, and they used the Venus, actually, Tanit. And I made a whole video about it. Venus, Tanit. Yeah, something like that. Yes.
More like
yeah, like the first one, you see that, right?
Like this right here.
Yes, that was like their thing. And then they had also a triangle in the bottom, and they were saying, oh yes, this is the polar configuration during the time of the Chaldeans. But if you go back and you research and you read what was that symbol, it was Venus by itself. It was nothing else except Venus. So I also show all these.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
So check this out then, which is interesting, because is it an 8-pointed? So Venus and ancient Sumer 8-point.
Well, Venus is supposed
like
to
this,
be 5.
right here.
Okay, well, what does that say if you click on it?
It's the Star of Ishtar.
Ishtar. Mm-hmm.
Which would be Venus, right?
Well, yes. Oh, Ishtar, yes, always. She was always Venus. And definitely. So it is interesting that that Ishtar and Venus was 8 points, but then the points, according to Sitchin, he was saying that each god had different amounts of points. Each star represented, like when they were doing their little diagram, like a pictograph.
Mm-hmm.
There you
Mm-hmm.
go. That's another one there. That's the Utu, right? Isn't that
Well, we've definitely got Ishtar. We've got Sin, which I think would be
yes, that's the moon.
the
Same.
moon. And
Yeah.
then to the right, that would be possibly Utu or Shamash.
Yeah, I can't really see. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And then
So
I think that's probably Hammurabi potentially. Or
no, that's Hammurabi should be around 1500 BC, between 2000 BC and 1500 BC. So if it's really the 12th century BC, and if you go back to my image, then you can see what was going on the 12th century BC, which is 11,000. It could be 11,000. Sorry, 11,000, like 100 to 11,900. Right? That's the 12th century BC. So if you go back to my image, if you can please do that.
Share screen.
I mean, I did spend years and years trying to put all these dots together. So people have no idea how much work that was. Well, you probably do.
This is cool. This is really cool. No, great work on this. So folks, if you're just joining us right now, we have Tess Clark, Mythos Decoded. I'll leave her website link in the video description box. And she has been studying and researching in depth for many years the electric universe, mythology, ancient cataclysms, connecting the dots. And so this is a timeline of, take it away, Tess.
Yes. So this is a timeline of events. And if you look, if you want to start on the top left, that would be, this is as far as I could go in time. And remember, it's all about the written record. It's not like, oh, I got this download from, or someone said this. No, this is what I could find in written records. So if it's true or not, I'm just the messenger, but this is what I wanted to put in paper, really make a very concise chronology so people could take a look of what I found. Anyway, so top. Okay, so on the top, in the very center, it says, after the Anunnaki arrived, perhaps from Ganymede or a planet orbiting Saturn, because L equals Saturn, or the Elohim. They split the planet and resources among themselves. They split Earth. They arrive on Earth and they split Earth and the resources and the people, which included the people that lived on the planet. And they divided into, different groups, and then they started fighting since then for power and control. They created all the world civilizations, rounded up Earthlings in cities. Remember, this is what I'm theorizing. If it's true or not, yes, you can go and research and make up your own mind. You don't have to believe anything I say. This is just a theory. And they rounded up the Earthlings in cities who were manipulated to worship, and their religions started to obey and serve their overlords. The lords pretend, they were not all bad, okay? I always say this, and Rex talks about that. So just like humans are good and bad, and there's different shades, same thing with these people. They were not all, or lords or gods, they were not all evil, so they were all kinds of good and evil, and in between. They pretended to control the planets, because there were ongoing catastrophes. And this is what my whole work and Velikovsky's work and David Talbot's alleged work is supposed to show. And he blamed the planetary disasters. They blamed the planetary disasters on the humans, who were engaged in never-ending wars in the name of their lords and gods. So that's the sad part. But anyway, so let's go to the left top. So around 5000 BC, the Anunnaki, who were the red-headed, blue eyes, O-negative giants, aka Neanderthals and Denisovans, arrived. That was the golden age when they arrived. Just before, they arrived, that was the golden age. Purple dawn, no ice. There was no ice on the planet at all. There was no night, humans. So there was no day and no night. It was like a purple dawn or dusk, either dawn or dusk, constantly. Humans were gigantic as well as them. They were even more larger than the humans that the terrestrial or the natives were. There were dinosaurs roaming then, and the Earth orbited Uranus before the capture of the moon. So this is the Preselenites, before there was a moon. Then
how
around
far back are we going to this point?
See, this is 5,000 BC.
So you're saying this is 7,000 years ago? Dinosaurs were hanging out, and there was a purple dawn.
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
Hello.
And of course, there were different types of dinosaurs. They were not all gigantic at this point, but many of them were very big. And that's why they were calling the Leviathan. And there was another type, and they were like pterodactyls and just a lot of big type of dinosaurs roaming.
But not like brontosauruses and stuff.
Maybe a little bit smaller. I mean, who knows what was going on before, because there's no written record, Rex. This is the written record. There could have been something that got lost, but this is what we can read about. So that's what I'm going by, right? So there were still some dinosaurs.
Where do we find the Purple Dawn stuff? I'm just sorry to interrupt. I'm just fascinated with that. I know the song.
Purple Dawn. Well, if you go to my book, you can read all about where I got the sources. So I have books, Mythos Decoded, Mythos and Cosmogony.
And they're on your website.
Yes. Well, yes. I had them for free. Well, yes. I had them. Well, I have videos that you can watch for free. And then the PDFs, I kind of like put them in a login thing, so people can give me like a $5 donation because I need money.
Yeah, totally. That's totally cool. No, that's awesome.
Anyway, so people, if they want to download and look at all that page with all my, more than probably 35 or 40 ebooks, MP3s, and their accompanying videos that I have done narrating all of this, which was a lot of work. They can get all access to all of that for like $5 or $7. I don't know. I have to look. But anyways, you can just.
I'll leave the link in the video description box. But and just to go back, so the moon, you theorize was brought here or captured. Like it wasn't sent here via spaceship pulling it like a tug. It was captured in the gravity. But you say that happened about 7,000 years ago?
Yes, that's when they see at the time of the Garden of Eden, there was no moon. During the lifetime of Adam, we can trace all these by very, very specific dating. So there's a dating, Anno Mundi. There's an Anno Mundi, and the Anno Mundi, which is the AM1 here, right here in the second box, where it says Ea mates with dawn and dusk, two female earthlings. That's what they were called by Sitchin, or by allegedly. And he creates the hybrid lines of Adam, who was known as Adapa, possibly, and Eve, who was known as Titi. Okay. So we have a very specific measuring of time, chronology. There's an Anno Mundi here, an Anno Mundi, and I go by Anno Mundi according to the different ancient rabbinical text or Bibles, like the Torah, the Talmud, and then the Bible that we know by the Christian Bible that has been so changed, and so like a ton of books taken out. So you can't read that one and say, oh, I know the whole story of Adam and Eve. No, you have to go further back, because this other text and the Gnostic text and all of the different books that got taken out during the 300 AD or 350 AD, when they decided to put together the Christian Bible, they'll tell you exactly what happened on Anno Mundi 1, Anno Mundi 2, or Year of the World. That's what it was called. So here, if you take a look at these, the Preselenites, there was no moon. So 5,200 BC, this is the time of the Purple Dawn. That was called Eridu. So you can find in the Sumerian text, at 5200 BC, a place called Eridu, Ur, which is also known as Iraq, and King Alulim of Ubaid. This is the Ubaid period, okay? This is a timeline. The civilization begins, and Anu, also known as Ouranos by the Greeks, or Hephaestus, Helios, Brahma, rain. Well, Hephaestus, yes, this is I talk about this. Diodorus Siculus explains how Helios, possibly Uranus before, changed the way it looked. So people called it Helios, and Helios or Hephaestus, which was like a kind of like a blurry, fiery god that they couldn't see because we were in the atmosphere of a brown dwarf or red dwarf, which possibly could have been Uranus at that time. And then Brahma reigns during this time for the Hindus. And then there's planetary catastrophes attached to astrotheology. That's why you have astrotheology and the different gods coming up. So Anno Mundi 1, Ea mates with these two earthlings, and then the bloodlines of the patriarchs, Adam and Eve, are created. And also there's Lilith, of course, which is not mentioned here, but I talk about her a lot. And that's the dragon blood. And then Saroi, or Sar 108, that was according to the Sumerians, is equals the Anno Mundi 987. So remember, it starts from Anno Mundi 1. So this is 987 Sarois. But I talk about a Saroi that it could be a month. It doesn't have to be a solar year yet, because we were not orbiting the sun yet. We were orbiting Uranus. And the earthlings, since the time of Adam, so when Adam was alive around this time, they saw the moon for the first time, and they said that Adam came from the moon, which I don't know what that means, but that's what they were saying. And he worshipped the moon, Adam. So remember, no moon before Adam. So there could have been no moon before. But remember, there was catastrophes. So I think if you look at the moons of Uranus now, if you go look at the moons of the planets, it looks just like the moon, our moon, the Earth's moon. So it could have been, and this is not just my theory, it's also Velikovsky's theory, according to this, to the mythologies. It could have been that Earth captured the moon from Uranus. So there was, okay, so we'll continue and then you'll understand. So at this time, there was the castration of Uranus, according to the Greek mythologies, by Kronos, who was Saturn. So Kronos was Saturn. So the first sun that earthlings could have seen, this one here, Helios, is not the same as Saturn. Saturn was Kronos, and they're different gods, so they couldn't be the same one. What happened is that Uranus was captured, not captured, Earth was captured, or the whole, well, I have to go back and explain. There were probably 4 red dwarfs, which was Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, Jupiter. They were all red dwarfs. Jupiter was possibly orbiting the sun, the current sun, which is known as Apollo or Utu, which you mentioned. Later on, he doesn't exist before here. See, I tell you here which gods were being worshipped. And the sun Utu is worshipped until almost 300 BC or 200 BC. 200 BC, 200 years. So that's only very, very, very short time before Jeshua, the time of Jesus, okay? Before then, it was not really worshipped as the main god. We're talking about who was the main god, the main honcho, or the main two, one or two. So let me continue and then we can talk about this. All right, so Saroi 108, Anno Mundi 987, Uranus is castrated by Kronos, which could point to these 3 stars, Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, were coming into the solar system of our sun with Jupiter as a binary. They were a binary, possibly. Again, this is all theories. And then they all started flaring, and that's the war of the Titans. So there, it's havoc in the whole solar system, not just in one planet. It's everywhere. It's just insanity and craziness, and the deluge. Well, the deluge is going to happen here. Kronos, the removal from the Garden of Eden happens at this time. There was night and day for the first time. So they see day and night for the first time. And Adam, it says in the books that he got really, really afraid because he didn't know what was going on. They're just telling you a story of what's going on here. The seasons appear for the first time. So it could have been that while we were in the plasma sheath of a red dwarf star, which could have been Uranus, we had all these amazing golden age type of scenario and atmosphere where humans didn't have to wear clothes. It was warm. They didn't need to plant anything because the trees and all the bushes were constantly giving their fruits. So it was warm, purple dawn or dusk. It was nice. And then this happens. We are captured into the solar system and all hell breaks loose. So then there's the deluge, the removal of the Garden of Eden. This happens first before the deluge, by the way. The removal of the Garden of Eden happens first. So there were many catastrophes also, not just one, many. And that's what we can learn from this chart in here. And the measurement of time begins because the stars become visible. Before then, there was no visible stars. People couldn't see the firmament, what is called the firmament. And it's just the stars. That's what the firmament means. It's not a glass ball like people make it to be. No, it's just the stars. They couldn't see them until this 987 Anno Mundi. Okay. This is, let's see. Ice sheets form for the first time. They Gigi calls on the fallen angels, maybe the fallen angels of the Bible, arrive at this time because it was during the lifetime of Enoch. So there was already catastrophes during the lifetime of Enoch. That's why the Gigi arrives probably from Mars to Earth. Earth exits Uranus plasma sheath, and the moon is captured. Enlil, who is also known as Saturn, Kronos, Enlil, not Ea, Enlil. Okay, this is very, very, very important because they changed that later on. With Marduk, he changes who the main honcho was, which was Saturn before. He puts his dad instead, but before Enlil represented Saturn, Kronos. Osiris, Isis, the moon, rule. So those are the people ruling, like the main honchos. Around 4300 BC, there's the capture of Earth, Mars, and Venus, possibly, Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, by the binary star system, Jupiter, Saturn, which is what I just explained. Okay, Anno Mundi 1656, which is around 4292 BC. And I also show all the chronologies that I use, like the sources, so people know where I'm getting these dates from. So I'm not making them up. It's people and cometographers, many people have said, okay, this is what happened, and this is what happened at this year, blah, blah, blah. So that's where, I get all my stuff from chronologists. And Saturn goes nova. Jupiter and Zeus, or Jupiter Zeus, known as Zeus, castrates Kronos. So just like what happened to Uranus, the same thing happens to Saturn. And it says that Zeus, who was Jupiter, castrated Kronos. So what that means is that there was an electric interaction, just like it was between Saturn and Uranus, between Jupiter and Saturn. And it caused the planet to lose its gigantic size, or its, sun-like status, just because we were not as close to it. And very important to explain is that Earth was actually being captured into the solar system and being captured or going by all these different gas giants as it was getting closer to the sun. So we need to understand that. So Earth was basically a comet together with with Venus and possibly Mars. and Mercury. So they were all kind of like comets because they were changing their orbits. They were discharging plasma. They were interacting with Earth. And so I just wanted to explain that. So Earth is not on the same spot, just standing there and all this happening. No, Earth is moving through the solar system. So it's just very, very chaotic. And that's why you have all these different gods and multiple gods and War of the Titans. And, the Sumerians also have battles in heaven. And I talk about all of that too. And the Numa Elish and all of that. Okay, so let's continue. So
real quick, I want to show something to the audience that I feel will help give an idea on the electrical interaction between planets and how certain planets can appear like comets. This is Mercury, and you're the one that actually showed me this, so and told me about this. So thank you. Let me pull this up real quick. Share screen. This, if you just do a Google search, go to Google and type in Mercury tail like a comet. And these are images that show how Mercury literally has a tail like a giant comet. And what's fascinating about this and the Velikovsky theory is he describes Venus being like a comet, acting like a comet. And that would explain potentially certain geographical, like for example, the Mars. If you go to Mars Canyon, it's called the Valley Marineris. This right here, if you look at the Valley Marineris, I mean, it looks like some electrical scarring that takes up almost a third of the face of Mars. And some people, I don't know what your theory is on this, but do you think that this scarring was formed when Venus was potentially ejected like a comet, or what's your theory on this?
Okay, I can explain that. Yes, this is definitely an electrical discharge, and it could have happened at any point, really. There is history, recorded history of Venus and Mars interacting and having a war. All the planets were interacting. Neptune was interacting with Earth. That's when the god Neptune with the thunderbolts, or the trident of Neptune, was creating rivers and changing the way the Earth looked. But yes, definitely this was caused by an electric interaction between maybe, I don't know, it could have been Neptune, it could have been Jupiter, it could have been Venus interacting with Mars. And that's probably why the GG left at that time. People describe seeing the atmosphere of Mars being taken out when it was close to Venus. Like there was water before. It was actually seen as a blue planet, and suddenly it didn't have these oceans. It lost it. And the ancients describe seeing Mars go lifeless. So anyway, so that would be around the time of Enoch, and then you could see that there was a lot going on. So possibly it could have happened during this. It's very recent. I mean, that's the incredible thing. And some people say about the moon, it's an artificial construct and all of that. And what I can tell you is that all the planets probably were inhabited, and it definitely got terraformed, and there's bases, and who knows? Yes. But that it was something that someone brought here and then just left it there as a way to look at humans. I think that's a disservice to understanding the history of the solar system, really, because to me, that's even more fascinating. But yes, they can make it an observation base. Why not? Because it's right here. It's always orbiting Earth. So it could be an observation, planet with bases, and inside, I would imagine that they would live, whomever lives there, live underground, because it would be easier. And in a way, but anyways, yes. And there's water.
Dream crusher.
Yes, and who knows what kind of creatures? There could be other creatures that have, we don't know, right?
It's a spaceship, man. It's a spaceship.
Yeah, so I wish people would not just believe those things, because remember, there's a lot of psyops that are created to disinformation, that not necessarily on purpose, but people just give their wrong information. I mean, they could be mind controlled. They could be, given information. Who knows? People can be believed to be abducted. And it could be the government, and maybe they think it's aliens, and it could be the government, and they're put all this, information, so people go out and blurt it out and talk about their abduction. And so we just never know. But anyways,
They would
anything is
never do
possible.
that. Come
No,
on. They love you.
they love you so much. It's
They love
because
you
they love
so
us.
much.
It's because they love us, Rex. All of this is everything is because they love us.
Yeah, it's just about the love.
Yes. So I'll just finish.
Fascinating.
I'll just finish here where the Cronus part, and then we can talk more, because I go through all the different catastrophes here. But we can just go a little bit further down, and then we can ask. You can ask questions, or anyone can ask questions.
This is great. No, please continue. This is fascinating.
Excellent. All right. So, okay. So we were talking about, this is important because this is the time of the great flood, the Noah's flood, the Anno Mundi, 1656. So it's very, very clear that it happened, during the lifetime of Noah, and at 4292 BC. That's the time that I've calculated also, according to the chronologist. Saturn's nova, Jupiter, Zeus castrates Cronus, Saturn. So that means it goes nova, and it loses its important place. It doesn't stay as the main god, because we were probably close to Saturn. We were going by Saturn. That's what I wanted to explain. And that's when the David Talbot, all the ideas that he says, oh yeah, Saturn, it was so important. It was because of this. Not that we were for a long time orbiting Saturn, because you can count all this. And it was maybe less than 300 years that this happens. And then the comets and the nova between Jupiter and Saturn. So they were all flaring, not just one, but all of them. So creating a lot of water and a lot of elements. So that could have caused mutations during the time of Noah's great deluge, because there were mutations. There are maps that I've shown that they were created by Ptolemy. He was creating the world ages, maps of world ages, meaning by catastrophes. And he was showing you all the mutations and how it's so cool. It's like people with like beaks of a bird, and a guy with an eye on his forehead, and, like the body of a bird, and just like really crazy stuff. You got to see it. It's very cool. And great flood happens. The axis tilted, and we enter the age of Taurus. This is during Stonehenge. Stonehenge is a calendar to mark the entrance, or this catastrophe, when we could see the age of Taurus. Horus reigned during the time of Cancer in Egypt. During Thoth's lifetime, Thoth, or, it has many different names. Trisman, the Hermes is his other name. During his lifetime, the Earth axis tilted several times, not just once, and entering from Cancer to Leo, then back to Cancer, and back to Leo again. And you can see these changes in the Dendera zodiac as it shows. So that was actual tilt. This is a time during Ninurta, Jupiter ruling after the flood. Okay. After 4000 BC, this is post the deluge. The rulers are the dynasty of Kish, the first dynasty of Kish after the deluge in Sumeria, and the pharaoh Nermis or Narmer in Egypt. Shem, Ham, and Japheth appear also at this time, or they're sons of Noah. The Nephilim, giants, they are the progeny of Cain and Seth, intermarriages. They're descendants, of course. I'm not saying Cain married Seth, please, people. Someone was like, but what are you talking about? No, Cain plus their women, and Seth plus their women, and then their children, intermarriage, and those are the Nephilim. And because people are very confused about that. Then Anno Mundi 1744, or Anno Mundi 1942. Anno Mundi, year of the world. In 4202 BC, or 3916 BC, Mercury events occur, and these are known, well, this is 288 years after the deluge. The Mercury event is known as the Tower of Babel. That means Mercury interacted with Earth electrically, and it caused earthquakes and giant thunderbolts that destroyed Babel. Babel was actually an astronomical observatory. It was a very tall tower, and the Pyramid of Cholula was also destroyed at this time. And the Pyramid of Cholula, according to the information of the people in Mexico, they were saying that it was built by giants, and some of them were good and some of them were bad. That's what they say.
Real
Anyways,
quick. Where do you get Mercury being connected to the fall of Babel? Fascinating, by the way.
yes. Well, we can go and read the text in my Mythos and Cosmogony and Velikovsky, and this is Buddha. Buddha is the same. Well, at the same. It's not the same person. So they are different gods around the planet, known as different with different names, of course, because there's the gods in Sumeria, there's the gods in Egypt, there's the gods in Greece, and in Mexico, and in America, and in Maori, and the Polynesia. So they have different names, but they are either related or different groups. So what you can do is go there. I mean, this is again, this is all according to the mythologies. Mercury was the messenger of Jupiter. I don't know if you know that, but if you remember that. So that means probably Mercury could have been orbiting Jupiter at the time. Okay, and that's why it was its messenger. So it was going back and forth, and then interacting with Earth and all of that. But then it stayed. What people also don't know is that we actually, I don't know if Mercury for sure, but I know that Venus and Earth have an orbit between the Sun and Jupiter, which we talked about, the 575-year orbit. And so we still are going back and forth between those two. And so it could have been also something like this. It's very hard for me and for anyone to say exactly how things were and how things are now, but we can extrapolate from these sources, from these hints that they're telling you who was fighting with who. So if you go and read the Battle of the Titans, the War of the Titans, there's very detailed, and I go into all of this with extreme, detail, and I show you everything that they have said from all the different mythologies, trying to understand what was going on. So yes, I can't, it's just from the mythologies, from who is attacking who, or who caused what, and that's thanks to Velikovsky and other people. When you go and look at the mythologies, I have all this in my book.
Quick, your theory. Does your theory on Venus and the age of Venus, is that similar to Velikovsky's theory of it being approximately 3,500 years old?
Okay, well, what I was going to explain about that is that when Velikovsky says that that Venus came out of Jupiter, it doesn't mean that it just plop it up, like it just spit it out, or it was like a fission. No, it doesn't mean that. If you read the mythologies, it's very clear that Venus was captured by Jupiter, and during the captured, and there's a story of how the mother, I can't remember, the Hera or whatever, the mother was impregnated and she gave birth. So there was a planet that was impregnated. That's how they explain it. Of course, there was no planet impregnated, but they say that because then Venus came out in full armor. That means that Venus was discharging and very affected by this close encounter with Jupiter. So that's what I think that Velikovsky really is talking about. He doesn't say that it was ejected as a piece of chunk that came out from the star.
That's what a lot of people believe, is that it was like pulled out of either the red spot in Jupiter, or somehow it was pulled out as a core of Saturn. And, I don't know, but the research I have done, it seems like Inanna has been discussed for longer than 3,500 years in the mythology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right on. Yes. And also if you read the mythologies of the Greek, Venus was both the star or the goddess of love and the goddess of war. And you would think, why? Because she would change from being beautiful planet, and also, there was a terrestrial woman or earthling on Earth, not earthling, but human-like person, creature that was actually in a body, So I'm not saying there were just planets, of course, but its counterpart was the planet Venus. So they would say that it would become angry or mad because of the electrical interactions, and then it would cause a lot of disasters on Earth when it would do this. So that's why it had this dual, like, love and hate relationship with the planet, and the different gods and goddesses would turn from beautiful to being angry or mad, or like a Medusa type of thing.
Mm-hmm. And Mars also agriculture,
Mars.
athleticism, vigor, like victory, and then war. So there's that duality again. And you brought up a very interesting point, and I have been theorizing this as well. Were there beings, gods, goddesses, deities that walked the earth that were highly advanced, highly skilled, very powerful, what people would look at like gods, because they could use parts of their mind and parts of their consciousness that could create these certain situations that we would look at as like sorcery or magic or something similar to that, like what the gods could do. Did they walk the earth? And if they did, where did they go? Are they coming back? I mean, there's people that think a lot of times that the gods were the planets and that's it, and the stars and that's it. And there's people that believe the gods were ancient aliens. And then I'm wondering if there's the possibility of both. But where does it start? Did it start from the stars and then these beings showed up? And then imposters also came in and said, oh, I am the representation of this planet, so therefore bow down to me, because they saw these magnificent beings. And your thoughts?
Yes. Well, if you read the ancient natural philosophers, including Plato and all of those people that talk about the mythologies and the gods, the history of the gods, as well as the Sumerian tablets, they tell you that they were actually beings that appeared, and they actually rounded up, like I mentioned, the earthlings, and of course they taught them all their civilization. So yes, it's possible that maybe Earth was a colony since long before, but because of these recurring catastrophes, things could have gotten lost, or these people could have left. I mean, imagine you are conquering Earth. Let's just say you and I are going around Earth conquering the different islands and continents. So we're just hanging out in Hawaii, and we know that there's going to be a catastrophe. We know that the volcano, we can see the signs that the volcano it's going to erupt, and we know the signs of like a volcanic eruption, pre-volcanic eruption. We wouldn't just stay there. We would like leave and say, let's go to a safer place. So these people, I mean, we just have to have common sense and think how what they would have thought. So if they could survive on Earth, maybe go to another part of Earth. But if Earth was going to be like a really dangerous place, just leave Earth if you have the means to leave, if you can, go to another planet. And it's possible that some of them left. I mean, the stories of Sitchin, he says that they left in the year 500 BC, around the time of the son of Marduk. That was like the last, that's what he says. That was like the last god, like full god, not hybrid, not the bloodline, not like the patriarchs and all their, hybrids that when they got mixed on the planet. I'm not talking about those, because they became us. We are them. So the aliens never left, in a way. Their hybrids never left. And because they also die, they would die. I mean, they tell you in their stories that they would die, physically die. And then when they would die, they would ascend or transform into a planet. That's what they would say, this is the belief of the Mormons. They believe something like that because that's where they got it from. Someone was talking about, oh, this is what they say in the text. So that's what they were telling humans. So they died, but their ancestors survived. So the question is, are their descendants? Sorry, their descendants. So the ones of the full, pure Anuna and the gods bloodlines. Question is, I'm sure they're still alive somewhere because I am sure that they're somewhere there. I mean, there got to be somewhere. And do they come back? That's a good question. I don't think they would come back to stay because Earth is in a really tough place. It's a very difficult life compared to living around a red dwarf star. I think living around orbiting a star like the sun, it's really tough because you get sick, you age. It's a very tough place compared. That's why they call it the Garden of Eden or the time of the Golden Age, because it was so much nicer. And I explain in my videos why it was considered this and how it looked like, maybe it could have looked like. And Legends of the Jews also explain all these, tell you that probably what happened with the atmosphere, it was different. Everything could have been gigantic at the time because of the atmosphere. And the long lifespans, I think that's a misunderstanding because they were counting the cycles, time, by the lunar months. That's all they had to go. That's why they had the lunar calendar. They didn't start using the lunar calendar, which is what I explained and go into here in this chart, until the solar year was used first around 160 BC or something like that. You can read it in there.
There's still not a huge difference, though, between a lunar cycle and a solar cycle.
Oh, it is a big... No, it is. A lunar cycle was from new moon to new moon. So it was about 30 days, 31 days.
Oh, I was thinking a lunar cycle was 13 months.
No, it's just a month. And the month was varying at the time, like in the ancient times. It wasn't always 30 days or 31 days or 28 days. It was actually from new moon to new moon. And sometimes it was a little longer. Sometimes it was a little shorter. That's why they didn't count like 30, 30, 30. They were like from new moon to new moon. So yes, so that's why we think they were very old. They would live very long time because they were using the lunar cycles. So you could say the cycles of the moon, and they would count by according to that. And before the moon was captured, well, when we were living inside of the red dwarf, let's say Uranus, or if you want Saturn, I mean, I don't care. I think it was Uranus, but it doesn't matter. If we were in the red dwarf, there was no counting time because they could not see any astral body, and that's what they use as a tool to count time. Otherwise, you cannot count time. I mean, maybe you have like a sand clock, and yes, you can do that. You can do that, but not using the astral bodies. That's why there was no counting of time. That's why they talk about there was no time. So why is now there was no time? Because they couldn't count by the astral bodies how time was evolving or passing. And that also changed. Calendars kept changing, which is something that you find throughout history. All these new calendars being put together, and it's hard to understand if you don't know that the Earth axis and orbit was continuously changing, and also the other stars appearing and disappearing, constellations appearing, disappearing, and all of these. Then that would explain why all these different calendars. So let's see if there's anything else that you want to check about Mercury. Okay, let's just get a little bit further. Anno Mundi 2230 or 2100 BC. That's the time of Jupiter, when Jupiter is the god, main god, bull of heaven. He was called the bull of heaven. Earth is captured temporarily by Jupiter. There's mutations. Giants shrink. So the giants shrink for the first time, and this is talked in the mythologies. and they start aging. So before this, there was really no aging. Imagine how incredible. So a father and a son, or a mother and a daughter, couldn't be told apart except from, this is my father and this is my daughter, or this is my daughter. Yes. So there was no aging. So there was probably still some kind of, red plasma sheet, like maybe infrared light, which is very healing. And now people are talking about the healing power of infrared and red light therapy. A lot of people, I've known about this for many years because of studying the ancient papers and reading about infrared light. And then
real quick, I got to say, this is interesting because Saturn is so often associated with time.
Yes, Chronos. So, that's when time started counting. That's why.
So maybe when we somehow got, like, if this theory is correct, and at one point Uranus was the star that was surrounding the Earth with its sheath, and then it got close to Saturn, so Saturn somehow pulled us into its orbit and changed the atmosphere to where aging started, potentially. And so that's why we have this connection with Saturn and age and Chronos, potentially.
Yeah, that's exactly Chronos. It means, that's where the word chronology and time comes from, Chronos. So if there was no time before Chronos, what's going on, right? What's going on? And Anu, that's why Anu is the main. Anu represents very possibly Uranus.
Yeah.
Uranus.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why he was the first, the main god, the father of all the others. He was like the main god. Of course, he had to have the most important star. And it doesn't mean that he was, like some people say, Uranus is the whole of the stars. No, that's not what it means. If you go and read, it's very specific. And if you read the Sanskrit, the Hindus and all the other mythologies, it was a planet. He had his own planet. So yes, that's what I think happened. That's why the word Chronos and chronology. And this was very all close together. Remember, these are not years, solar years. These are months. So that's kind of mind-boggling. I know. This is just like put it in a shelf of maybe.
Well, if you take 42,500 years, you divide it by 12 approximately, you're still going to get
400 years.
Well, 3,800, wouldn't it be?
3,800.
I mean, yeah, let's do so. So that's still, the reason I'm using 42,500 years, folks, is because if you look at the Sumerian king list, there's certain kings that rule. If you take a Sar into 3,600 years, then they would be 42,500 years of ruling. Now, if we were to divide that into lunar cycles, so it's like 30 days versus 360 or 365. So let's just do this real quick. So we've divided by 12.
Okay, wait. So first you have to see at the very top of the left, the very first rectangle explains that a saroi, which is a sar, is one. Sorry, a saroi or sar equals one sar. And one sar is 9 solar years.
Well, if the SAR is 9 solar years, then, I mean.
One SAR equals 9 solar years. So 9 solar years.
3,600
anyway, so you have
divided by 9, you get 400. So you would take, so basically it'd be 400. Or wait, what?
Anyways, I go into it, but you just have to imagine here that this is the same time being measured by the same people. So it's not different like 500,000 years ago and 5,000 years ago. This is just 5,000 years ago. And the way that some people, okay, I go into it and I explain this whole Saroi misconception, who changed the counting. And that was a guy in the 1700s, I believe. I go into all this in my videos and in my ebooks. He misinterpreted. It's just a guy. I think it was Haley. No, I think it was Haley, maybe. He misinterpreted that the Saro was, 3,600. But 3,600 could be days. not years. That's another misinterpretation. So let's not just get confused about that. Let's just forget about that right now. And let's just go by the BC time. Otherwise, you have to go and read the stuff that I have put together so you can understand where I'm coming from and why I'm saying this. This time is, yes, I know that you go by the 3,600 years as if it was a solar year, which is fine. So let's just not talk
Well, not
about
necessarily.
that.
I'm just doing the math.
It's okay.
Just doing the math. So yeah, that's cool.
But anyways, yes, let's just say in my theory, let's just go by this theory that matches, and I explain why and in my books. Remember, I don't have time to tell you 12 years and 40 books all in 1 hour, but I'm giving you the basis of my conclusions, and then you can go and research and see all the sources and then make up your own mind. And yeah, but
cool.
Manetho, Isaac Newton, who else? There was like 3 or 4 people were explaining that, Diodorus Siculus, those are all ancient historians. They were all explaining that the ancient talked about the year of the ancients. It's not the same as the solar year of 360 or 65 days. Now, they explained that. They said it was months. So it's them saying it too, because they knew it. And even Isaac Newton, who was known to write about the occult, and he published this book after his death because he didn't want to be ridiculed, or maybe he was not allowed to do it until after his death. He actually has a book called Chronology of Ancient Kingdoms Amended, and where he explains that the way that and it was written to the Queen. It was for the Queen Elizabeth, I believe. Queen Elizabeth I. I believe that he goes and says, like, we have to think about this logically. Remember, this was for the Queen and for the royals to know. The life of the ancients wasn't as long as they tell us. It was the generations. If you count generations, then, and if you know how long the year lasted for the ancients, then it would be the lifespan almost like ours, basically. That's what he was trying to explain in his book, and to the Queen. Okay, so then any questions? Or
I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to, where do you want to take it next?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can, yeah, well, Utu and all of that. Yeah, it just tells you here, Zeus Amon, this is Marduk, he comes afterwards, Ra, all of these, and then the thunderbolts of Mars, comets from here's Mars again. So you just were asking about Mars. Let's just talk about this one. Anno Mundi 2230 or 2100 BC. This is when mutations, giants shrink and start aging. Jupiter and Neptune's thunderbolts. That's when the mythologies talk about Jupiter's and Neptune's thunderbolts, plus Mars. So Mars, there was also things happening with Mars on Earth. And so, yes, catastrophes. And also thunderbolts between Jupiter and Mars. And the comets from the Jordan caused the Jordan Rift, which is the Dead Sea, appears. The Utah Salt Lake appears. The canyons are created by these thunderbolts. This is the time of Sodom and Gomorrah, caused also by many volcanic eruptions. This is the time of Abraham. This is during the time of this is what it's called the War of the Titans. Gilgamesh is existing at this time. Thor, Zeus, Jupiter, Ninurta are the rulers. Yahweh or Jehovah rule at this time. So, yes. I mean, I'll just have to say and if you keep reading, there's been so many catastrophes, which is another thing that the David Talbot's, the myth, the Saturn myth, kind of like did away with. He just said, there was just one time long ago, there was one big catastrophe and this is it. And there was no gods. They did not exist. It was all planets. So that's not true. When you read the sources and you see there are ongoing catastrophes all the time, and including after Jesus' time, after the AD, this is what I continue to do. This is what I show people. There's ongoing. ongoing catastrophe. It's just the way the universe works.
Welcome to Earth. It's a bumpy ride, but you're gonna love it. I'm gonna
I
show
know
off
you
your
gotta love it.
I'm
You
gonna show
gotta
off your
love it.
website real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So Mythos Decoded, mythosdecoded.wixsite.com. Let me show this off.
/mythos.
Dot. No, just kidding.
I know. Don't make fun of it. No, it's okay.
No,
Remember,
not at all. Let me see here. Bada bing, bada bing, bada boom.
so yes, don't flip out, people, and go, oh, if you never heard of this and you never studied this, don't go, oh, that's all bullshit. Oh, it can't be. No. Go and read, think, ponder, and then come up with your own conclusions. And if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to write them down under the video on YouTube, and I'll try to answer either there, or if it's too censored, like if it's kind of censored on YouTube, I can answer them in a PDF on my website. Not on my website, on my Odyssey channel.
You know what? And we're gonna do some exclusives on Patreon, folks. So if you want to listen to the stuff that we only talk about on Patreon, or we may jump on Rumble as well, but we're definitely going to be doing some exclusives. So check us out on Patreon and Patreon Leak Project. You can be a Patreon for like $5, and that gives you access to thousands of hours of content. Much of that is exclusive. Like, look at this. This is so cool. You've even got Leak Project on your website. That's great.
Yes, we've done many interviews.
We have done a lot of interviews.
Yes.
And so here's your myths, your ebooks, and once you are signed in, you can go to the guest area, put in your password, and get access to all that. Definitely worth it. Tons of hours of content that Tess has done a great job putting together. So Tess, it's been a lot of fun. We need to do this again. We should do this like once a month. Get people up to par with what's going on, and keep up the great work. You're doing an awesome job. Is there anything else that you want to share with us before we finish this amazing podcast up?
Yes. Well, looking at history can help us understand the present and know where we might be going. So, and always with an open mind and being kind to each other and not being afraid. Just trying to understand where we're at and hopefully create a better place.
Yeah, let's create a better place. I like that. And folks, thank you so much for being here with us. I hope you have a marvelous day. Have a spectacular day. It's great to see y'all in the chat. And it'd be cool if the 418,000 amazing subscribers that we have, it'd be nice if they, even if half of them got notifications. But folks, you should feel lucky if you get a notification anymore, because I mean, they put us on the naughty list. So I guess anyway, enough about that, but definitely take it as a compliment if you got a link to or a notification. And I feel honored to have the chance to speak with you, Tess, and have such amazing subscribers and people that watch the podcast. I learn from the subscribers on like a daily basis. It's really cool. So have a beautiful day, everybody. And be the change you want to see. Check back daily for new content. Nanny.